Hey guys, Tim here. I'm back again to talk about the Nosfet Apex. And so basically I had the wheel for 8 days so far, and I put 100 miles on the wheel, like 102. But basically the weather has been very terrible, and the trails are completely snowed in and frozen over. So I just wasn't been able to off-road with this wheel. You know, I did stairs, I rode in the rain, I rode in the snow. I basically just like rode this wheel constantly for the last 8 days. And so, you know, I felt like I have learned as much about the Apex as I possibly can for now. And the only way I can learn more about the wheel is that I take it off-roading, but I can't. So I'm going to pass this wheel on to the next tester. And that, you know, like, once ever I get it back, hopefully the weather will be better by then so that I can like actually ride off-road. Before we go into the details, I want to give a big thank you to Jason and his team at eWheels for sending me the testing units that I have here. So, you know, basically like a month ago, I was ready to buy the the Apex, and you know, I've been buying my own bliss, I've been buying my own Ackway for testing. And that's when they said, you know, hey, you know, we'll send you the test units, just hold on, don't buy the wheel yet. And, you know, I was really appreciative that they do that. And the second thing is that I don't really make any money doing this YouTube stuff. So if you guys would like to support my channel, you can use my referral link if you're going to purchase a wheel from eWheels. You know, if you don't use it, that's fine. eWheels customer service is freaking awesome. Most of my wheels are from them for that reason. Or if you need power pads or just EUC accessory, you can check out my website at teparize.com. I have mostly like budget-friendly, you know, power pads and all the accessories. That's it. So as you guys probably already know, Nosfet is a pretty new company. You know, like they have only been established for I think like not even half a year yet. And so the Apex was their first wheel, and you know, there's just not much reputations from them to start with. So I like the fact that they went and used the components of a very successful wheel, which was a veteran Lynx. So the Apex uses the same motor, the same battery, and the same controller as the veteran Lynx. So, you know, like part of the good reputation from the Lynx carries over into the Apex. However, even though these two wheels are very similar on paper, you know, the Apex cannot be any more different than the Lynx, because the programming is different, the engineering language of the wheel is different, and you know, the suspension mechanism is completely different. So, you know, while it borrows the same core components, like the way the wheel rides, the way the wheel behaves, the way you use this wheel is very much different than a veteran Lynx. So the first thing I want to talk to you guys about is the build quality of the Apex. Okay, so let me just peel off the fairing plate here. This is an aftermarket part, so it's not part of the wheel by default. So let me just put that aside. I want to show you guys this because you see, this is a very bare bone design. You have floating battery packs, you have the suspensions completely exposed in the center, and you know, you have like a front and a back bumper, and that's it. The wheel also have a kickstand, but I broke the kickstands, so you guys don't see it on the video here. But yeah, that's it. So as you guys can see here, the wheel doesn't really have a lot of going on. But, you know, based on my experience, you know, tearing down the wheel twice already. I did it once to maintain the suspensions, and I did another time to change the tire. You know, like working with this wheel is an absolute breeze. And also, the way this wheel is built is just honestly really, really great. Because, you know, for example, the bumpers here, they use 30mm bolts that you know, basically goes from one side of the shell to the other side of the battery box, not the shell, and to secure the handles. These handles are super ergonomic, they're super durable, and that's also very, you know, solid, because I actually use this as like a kickstand. I just rest the wheel on its face many times, and it's still holding up very well. And another thing is that all like the essential bolts on the Apex have 2 washers on them. Okay, and that what this means is that the bolts are like always super secure, always super tight. You know, as long as you like tighten everything correctly, nothing is gonna get loose on this wheel. And speaking of that, you know, like almost all the bolts on this wheel are Loctite out of factory. It's just incredibly impressive just how, you know, like everything is thread locked, everything, you know, have washers on them to just secure everything. And the wheel, even though it doesn't have a lot going on, as you can see, this wheel is incredibly solid. Now with that said, let me show you guys how I broke the kickstand. So yeah, this was the kickstand right here. You can see that it's actually like broke off from the kickstand brackets. And this is absolutely fine by me, because you can see from that design, this kickstand is supposed to be the crumple zone. You know, it's supposed to be something that breaks first in the event of like a crash or an impact. So yeah, I think the build quality on the Apex is super solid. You know, like I really enjoy working on this wheel. It takes like 20 minutes to do maintenance on the suspensions. It takes like 25 minutes to actually disassemble the wheel so that you can start doing the tire change. Everything is a breeze, everything is easy, just like, you know, like how Big Old wheel used to be. And you know, except that this wheel is definitely engineered with a lot more like common sense, and everything is just kind of like have its own place. Super solid wheel. Okay, so let's move on to amenities, and this is gonna be a really short list because this wheel doesn't really have any amenities. There's no trolley handle, there's no seat. Okay, and I find that, you know, if you use the coil shock version of the wheel, on the top of the wheel here, the reservoir will kind of sticks up from the wheel so that it actually pokes your butt if you try to sit on it. That's why I'm also been running the air shock, because I can actually sit on the wheel without the seat. You know, with the air shock install. The other thing is that the Apex also have a daytime running light on the stock lights. You can see here, looks really cool. There's also 3 light modes. Okay, although, you know, I'm not a big fan of the multiple light modes. I just rather have one. The user interface is also very different from the Lynx. They kind of make their own taste from it, which I honestly think is like really cool. The pedals, as I mentioned in my previous video, these pedals are cast, but the thing is that they increase like the length of these spikes on the pedals so that, you know, like it actually grips onto your foot a lot better than the Lynx stock pedals. But yeah, due to the lack of a trolley handle, you know, like the only option that you use to push this wheel is that you're gonna grab your hand on the back here and just kind of push the wheel along, and that's not comfortable because you have to crouch down for starter to like push. And the second thing is that, you know, it's not very stable going up and down stairs also. I actually find that it's much easier that you just sit on top of the wheel and just like push it along while you're sitting on it than actually pushing it by hand. But yeah, amenities wise, another thing I want to complain is that the front fender of the Apex is surprisingly short. Like I can't even see it in here, but the water is just kicking up, you know, up all over the headlight and the kick and the handle here, and on the back too. The back have a really, you know, small fender, which I think doesn't really do anything. So water just like kind of gets sprayed up to your back. I learned that the hard way, actually. But you know, like I wish that they would put a longer fender on both front and back. Okay, so let's talk about performance. In terms of performance, I feel like this wheel is kind of in line with the veteran Lynx, except that due to different programming, you know, the wheel behaves differently. It rides a little more aggressive, a little more like eager to go into the high speeds. And you know, most importantly, I feel like the pedal dipping behavior has gotten a lot better than the Lynx, you know, with the new update that have the anti-pedal dip features. Okay, so those of you guys who have followed me will know that I also own the veteran Lynx. I don't have it here right now because I lent it to a friend, and you know, I'll get back in like a few weeks or so. But basically, the one thing that kind of irks me about the Lynx is that once you push the wheel and you get into that like 45, 46 mile per hour mark, you know, the wheels start to get progressively like harder and harder to accelerate, right? It's like there's a firmware limits that veteran plays so that, you know, you have to push really hard to get past like the 45, 50 miles per hour mark on the Lynx. And so, you know, because of this, I cannot like disagree with veteran any like more about, you know, just artificially limiting the performance of the wheel, because the Apex, you know, this is an unlocked Lynx. You can actually go into like the 50s very easily and very comfortably. Top speed wise, I haven't really done any, you know, like proper speed test aside from my like first impression video, but you know, like my 53 miles per hour record is still the highest record, but I can tell you confidently that I've hit 50 miles per hour mark constantly on this wheel without even realizing it. With that said, I think there's a lot of the Lynx riding behavior that carry over to the Apex. You still get the same smooth, you know, like rollout, the same like smooth, you know, accelerations from like the, I think the 20 miles per hour up to like the 45 mark. And then, you know, like the difference starts at the 45 mark, because there's just no limits on the Apex, so that you can continuously accelerate harder and go faster with ease, and you don't have to just pushing super hard like the Lynx does. Performance wise, another big difference between the Apex and the Lynx is that with the Lynx, you know, like high speed mode, aka fuel weakening, is an option that you can turn on and off. And the same goes for low battery modes, that can also be turned on and off. On the Apex, those two features are on by default. You know, on the Apex, fuel weakening is on until the wheel dies. So like I was able to ride into the 50 miles per hour mark super comfortably, even at like 30% battery. You know, the wheel did not even beep at me. Okay, so moving on to range. I did like kind of impromptu range test where I just take the wheel out one morning and I just roll until the wheel completely died. So from 100% battery to close to 0% battery, I got about 28, 29 miles. And I want to point out that during this range test, the weather was about like 27, 28 Fahrenheit. So it was very cold. And so, you know, the range really suffered because of that. So, you know, in terms of range, I feel like this wheel is very in line with the Variant Lynx, you know, which is not surprising because after all, it uses the same motor and battery. Okay, so let's talk about suspensions. I would like to explain about how the Apex suspension actually works. So you see here that this yellow part here, this is called the sliders, right? And this part here will slide up and down along with the wheel in between this chamber here. And this silver part here is the, what I call it, the wet chamber, because there are two seals on the top and the bottom. And on the inside, there is grease inside. And so when the slider moves up and down in and out of this chamber, the sliders are lubricated. It is clean of dust. And so, you know, this means that the suspensions is, you know, is quiet, it is clean, it is consistent. You know, and this type of mechanism, I think, is like the highest performance type of suspensions that you can get on EUC. The Lynx might be trouble-free and it might be maintenance-free for a long period of time, but it doesn't have the same consistency and the same, you know, like just smoothness that this suspensions actually have. So I was very, very impressed. You know, with that said, Nosfet has already said that the suspensions on the Apex will require periodic maintenance. On their manual, they say you have to maintain the wheel every 300 miles or, you know, 500 kilometers. But, you know, talking with other owners who doesn't ride a lot of dirt, I feel like, you know, this wheel can definitely go further than 300 miles, you know, before you need to maintain it. It really depends on, you know, where you ride on, you know, where the dirt's gonna pick up a lot or something like that. You know, if you just ride on the streets where there's not a lot of dirt and debris, the wheel can go, I think, like 500 miles, no problem. Because I rode for like 100, and you can see that the sliders are still super clean, and I still haven't maintained it much at all. And speaking of maintenance, again, the process is super simple. You just take off the bottom part of the wheel, you take the slider out, and then you clean it up and you grease it, and you know, you just put it back together, and that's it. Super easy. It's just like, I feel like many people are intimidated by the fact that they have to do this, but it's just such an easy thing to do, you know, like, you know, for high performance suspensions like this, it's completely worth it. Another thing about the suspensions is that you guys probably know that this suspension is completely adjustable, right? You can adjust the height of the suspension travel. The highest you can go is 150. The lowest you can go, I think, is like 55. So there's a lot of like customizability for everyone. For myself personally, I like riding the wheel at 150 millimeter, which is the highest. I think that, you know, if you have the most travel, you should use the whole travel. So, you know, like no reason not to use them unless like you're having a lot of difficulty riding the wheel at the highest suspension travel. And also another good thing about the Apex is that the shock is an aftermarket part. So what this means is that you can actually replace the shock with something else that you would like more. And you know, the D&M shock that came with the wheel, I'll be honest with you guys, these shocks are cheap. You know, they're usually like $100 and less. You know, there are much more premium options like the King Creek shock or like the Fox shocks. You know, that's just a lot better, more premium, you know, more high performance options. So yeah, guys, I just want you guys to know that, you know, like I really enjoy riding the Apex because, you know, like it carries a lot of the Lynx behavior. But when it comes to like, you know, high speed riding, high performance required, you know, this wheel does so much better. It's because there's no, you know, like limits that was kind of put there on the firmware. You know, the wheel just happily gives everything it got, you know, and that's why most of my wheels are Be Gold and Extreme Bold, because, you know, their wheels gives everything that it has. And the Apex is kind of like a Lynx that, you know, also gives everything that it has. But with that said, I have to be honest, guys. I'm not sure if I should recommend this wheel to everybody or not, because I feel like the Apex is targeted into like a very small demographic of riders. You see, the first thing is that this wheel is quite cost prohibitive. On eWheel, it's currently at $35.50. Meanwhile, the Lynx is $36.50. So, you know, if I have to recommend a wheel to an average rider who, you know, doesn't want to work on the wheel, who just want to like get the wheel, put the pads on and ride, I would go for the Lynx. It's only $100 more. The Apex, on the other hand, I can really only recommend to people who want like the ultimate wheel. And what I mean by this is that the Apex is not like the ultimate wheel as it already is. This is like a blueprint. Okay, you can replace the shock with a more premium shock to like really optimize the suspensions. You know, you can replace the seal on the weight chambers with a better ones, so that like the suspensions can go for longer without needing without requiring maintenance. And most importantly, because the suspension setting is completely adjustable, as well as the power delivery is completely adjustable, you know, like you can really customize this wheel to make it your own. And that, I think, is a beautiful thing, right? Because when I'm talking about the ultimate wheel, I'm not talking about like some wheel that is super high voltage, that's super fast, that's like, you know, that you have to kind of force yourself to learn how to ride it. The Apex can be tuned to ride exactly the way you want it to ride. And that, I think, is like the most beautiful thing that a wheel can offer you. You know, but at the same time, guys, we have to be realistic, because this wheel is still pretty dang expensive. You know, at $35.50, and if you're thinking about like putting on a different shocks, you know, a really premium shock costs like $500. So you're looking at like a $4,000 wheel. That's, you know, it's a medium range wheel. You're not getting a lot of bang for the bucks here. But most of the things that I see on this, demo units, I really like. And, you know, like this wheel is still a work in progress. What I mean by this is that Nosfet is actually listening, and they're taking feedback, and they're addressing a few issues that, you know, people have been relaying to them. Obviously, like there still has been things that they haven't gotten to, like the fenders, for example. But the wheel rides great. Actually, like I love this wheel. I'm really considering getting one for myself if I haven't really been tied down with these two wheels over here. But maybe, you know, later this year, I'll probably buy my own Apex later on, after they still, you know, work out all the kinks on the wheel. So yeah, guys, in conclusion, I think that the Apex is a solidly built wheel. It's very solidly engineered. I love the build quality. There's a few things I would like to see addressed, but not completely a deal breaker. And I like that the wheel gives you the possibility to customize it so that it can, you know, rise exactly the way you want it to be. But of course, the price is just a little bit too expensive for my taste. You know, I wish that this wheel is like, I think a few $100 cheaper, like $100, $200 extra. But yeah, guys, that's it. I'm gonna head out now. I'm planning to go into New York City to meet up with the next tester. And then, you know, like maybe in a few weeks or so, you might hear back from me about this wheel. But in case you don't hear back from me, then, well, at least you know my opinions about the Apex. All right, so that's it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.